The courtroom was packed to the plaster. Reporters stood 3 deep along the back wall, notebooks out, and the ceiling fans pushed the July heat around without cooling a thing. A man who owned half the hotels and clubs in the city didn't get himself shot every day, and the whole town had come to watch somebody pay for it. Mike Turnbull got to his feet before the jury could be sent out. "Your Honor, before the jury retires, my client has something to say about the circumstances that led to Mr. Sanchez's death." Turnbull was a thin, ordinary-looking man in his 40s, the kind you'd pass on the street and forget. Juries forgot him too, right up until he'd hung them. He took the cases nobody could win and won just enough of them to stay famous. This one was supposed to be one of the ones he lost. Peter Shaw came up out of his chair like a landslide reversing itself. He was bald, 50, and built like a barrel that had learned to wear a suit. He'd kept this case for himself instead of handing it to one of his young men because it was high profile and it was money in the bank. Objection. "This is a stall, Your Honor, nothing more. The people have proved their case," Shaw went on, not waiting to be told to sit. "We have the gun with the defendant's prints on it. We have him on tape walking into Sanchez's house at the hour of the killing. We have a witness who watched him put 2 bullets into the man. This is open and shut. Every extra minute is the taxpayers' money burning." "Your Honor," Turnbull said, quiet against the big voice, "a few minutes for a man's own words before you take his life away is not a stall. It's the least this court owes him. Deny it and we deny his rights." Judge Clark Benson looked at both of them over his glasses. He was past 60 and hadn't hurried for anyone in 35 years on the bench. He had a reputation for giving every man all the rope the law allowed and for noticing exactly what each one did with it. Overruled, the defendant may take the stand. John Williams rose. He was young, late 20s, handsome in a dark blue suit that fit him too well for a killer. He crossed the floor without hurry and settled into the witness chair as though it were his own porch, and the whole room leaned in, waiting for a confession. He didn't give them one. "When I was a boy," he said, "all I wanted was to be my father, to be tall and strong like him, to take care of people. He had a bike shop, and I thought he was the finest man alive. Then the year I turned 10, the shop burned. The insurance company decided the fire was his fault and paid us nothing." Objection. Shaw was up again. "The court doesn't need the man's memoirs, it needs a verdict." "The motive is in his past, Your Honor," Turnbull said. "Let him reach it." Overruled, go on. "We were poor overnight and it broke something in him. He started drinking. Inside a year he was drinking all day, and nobody would hire a man who couldn't stand up straight by noon. My mother took whatever work she could find, and my father took her wages off her at the door and drank them. My sister and I learned what an empty stomach feels like." Shaw shifted, ready, but the judge's eye moved to him first and he held his tongue. "To keep us fed," John said. "My mother went on the street. It didn't shame my father. It pleased him more money for the bottle. That went on for 4 years. It stopped being shame and became something worse the day he decided my sister would earn her keep the same way. She was 15. The room had gone very still. She refused. She was a decent girl and she told him no. John's voice didn't rise, it went flat, which was worse. So he picked up a baseball bat. I got between them and he threw me off like I was nothing. I couldn't stop him. He hit her and he kept hitting her until there was nothing left of her to hit. He took out a handkerchief, unhurried, and touched it to his eyes. When it was done and he understood what he'd done, he dropped the bat and ran. My mother came home to it. She couldn't carry it. She drank pesticide that night and followed my sister. I got passed from one foster house to the next like a bad debt. The police looked for my father and never found him. He folded the handkerchief away. So I made myself a promise: find him, get justice for them, or die on the road doing it." He stopped. There was nothing left to say, and he knew the exact moment to stop saying it. Shaw stood slowly now, careful, a man who could feel the floor moving. "Your Honor, may I question the defendant? He's yours, Mr. Williams." Shaw came close. "I'm sorry for what happened to you, and I hope every word of it is true." "It's true." "All of it? And what does any of it have to do with your putting 2 bullets in Michael Sanchez?" John met his eyes and held them. "If you dig, Mr. Prosecutor, really dig, you'll find that the man you buried as Michael Sanchez was born David Williams, wanted in another state for beating his 15-year-old daughter to death with a baseball bat." Somebody in the gallery made a sound. Shaw's face didn't move, but it took him a second too long to speak. You're telling this court the victim was your father. I decline to answer, John said pleasantly, on the grounds that it may incriminate me. Shaw wheeled toward the bench. Your Honor, the jury's been poisoned. This is theater and it's tainted the pool. I move for a mistrial. Ease off, Mr. Shaw. Benson didn't raise his voice either. He turned to the jury box. You will decide this case on the evidence and nothing else. Not on sympathy, not on the history of the deceased. Whether the dead man was a saint or David Williams himself changes nothing. One man shot another. Your only question is whether the state has proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. Nothing more. You can't unring a bell, Your Honor. Declare a mistrial and let a clean jury, Shaw insisted. In 35 years, the judge said, and now there was iron in it, I have never had a mistrial in this courtroom, and I won't take my first because the district attorney didn't trouble to learn who his own victim was. Sit down. He looked to the jury. You may retire. 3 hours later, John sat in the windowless holding room off the main hall, 2 guards on the only door, and by the 3rd hour the sweat had soaked through the blue suit, and the patience had gone out of him. Then the door opened and Turnbull came in wearing a grin, and John let his breath out. Congratulations, Turnbull said, dropping into the chair beside him. They cut you loose. John gripped his hand. Thank you, nobody else would touch it. Everyone said it was dead. I'm sorry, Turnbull said, and meant it. For your mother, your sister. Don't be. John's grin matched his own now. They're fine. The lawyer's smile hung there unsupported. What? My mother and my sister are just fine. They're in Alaska with my father. What the hell are you? Turnbull pulled his hand back. Sanchez wasn't your father. I never said he was. Everyone in that room said it for me. I just didn't correct them. You made it up, all of it, for the jury. Every word of the sad part. John leaned back easy. Though it's true about Sanchez, the man really was David Williams, and he really did kill his daughter with a bat. That part I didn't need to invent. You perjured yourself on the stand. If they turn up your family alive, I'm John Williams to them. They'll pull the records and the records will hold. And if some clerk decides to go hunting for the real John Williams, he smiled, well, he's been missing for years. That's a long road, and I'll be off it before anybody's halfway down. Turnbull sat very still, understanding at last the shape of the thing he'd been holding all week without seeing it. You had this from the start, from before the start. Why did you kill him, the real reason? That, John said, you'll never know. The law catches up sooner or later. Don't be dull, Mike. You and I both know it won't. John stood and buttoned the ruined suit. You want to hear the funny part? Turnbull said nothing. I've just told you everything. Confessed the whole business, chapter and verse, and you can't breathe a word of it to a living soul. Attorney-client privilege. He said the words like a man tasting good whiskey. That's what makes your country's justice the finest in the world. Go to hell, Turnbull said. Relax. John was already at the door, and the guards were standing back to let a free man through. You won, didn't you? He went out into the heat, and the door swung shut behind him. And Mike Turnbull sat alone in the small hot room with the only truth in the building and no lawful way to open his mouth.